Deadman Wonderland was an anime I couldn't escape when I was initially getting back into the medium. It seemed everyone was talking about this show, from my personal friends, family, and the internet. Airing in 2011 in Japan and produced by Manga, Deadman Wonderland has since gained a following for its violence, setting, and colorful dub by Funimation. But more importantly than that, Deadman Wonderland is one of the first times I've ever experienced the dreaded, unannounced Season 2. That's right, you've probably heard this anime and a handful of others being put into this category of never getting a proper sequel. And what's even stranger is this little anime from Manga is often the one that will get mentioned the most. So bearing that in mind, I like to take a look back at Deadman Wonderland almost 8 years after its initial airing. This is Deadman Wonderland. Ganta Igarashi is just a regular student attending one of his classes when a mysterious person only known as the Red Man shows up and kills all of his classmates. Now framed for the murder, Ganta is sent to the high-tech, highly secretive prison, Deadman Wonderland. In this prison, things are run a little differently. Prisoners have a currency system and a whole economy, and if one doesn't follow the rules, they will be punished by Commander Makina. But upon his arrival, Ganta is met by the seemingly innocent-minded Shiro, a girl with white hair dressed in a spandex suit and overly large mitts on her hand. And after being implanted with the power to control his blood, Ganta partakes in Deadman Wonderland as a dead man himself, which is a competition where dead men who can also control their blood fight, and the other loses a body part. To start off, I think that coming back to this anime 5 or so years after, I saw it was a great choice, seeing as this was one of the first anime I had really seen, as my brother pushed me to watch this one. I was really able to see how my tastes have changed in those 5 years and pick up on things I hadn't in my previous sit down with the series. And to those who can do this, I recommend going back and just watching anime you haven't seen since you started watching anime. I bet you will learn a lot of things about your taste and may even rediscover something you really like. You'll find a new appreciation for things. Before going into this anime, I remember really liking this show and, like most others, wanting a season 2. Something about the setting and the story really hooked me in on first viewing. An anime being set in a prison isn't something you often get, and with this only being on the more violent and edgy side, it had my interest peaked as a teenager. And with the power of Netflix, I was able to watch all of the series, and I'm pretty sure I binged it in a day. Being a teenager, of course, you have a lot of free time. So, flash forward to 2019. What are my thoughts on Deadman Wonderland? Well, to put it simply, the show isn't something I enjoyed that much outside of the first 4 to 6 episodes, which is a good thing. I think those episodes really sell you on the idea of this show. But sadly, the series has a myriad of issues. The first being its predictability. From episode 1, I immediately knew the main twist of the series, and that's Shiro being the Red Man. It was so painfully obvious from the get-go that it was hitting you over the head with a hammer with all of its clues. This just immediately sapped out a lot of my enjoyment, because Ganta's goal is to get revenge on the Red Man, and with the point of the show being that the Red Man is masked so that we can figure out his identity, I mean, it just takes a lot out of it. This is probably the biggest issue of the series, and the issues only really pile up with the anime Deadman Wonderland. Ganta, in particular, not being a very likable character at all. In fact, he's more often than not annoying. Discussing this with a friend of the channel, Satsuki the Savage, check him out, he brought up that Ganta basically uses the blood Rasengan, with the main difference being his Ganta gun is a projectile. And much like Naruto Uzumaki, Ganta himself is frustrating, to say the least. 1 second, he likes Shiro, wants to protect her. The next second, he's punching her in the face. And the other, he's trying to protect her again, and then eventually, at some point, he tells her he hates her because she's a dead man, not taking into account all of his friends are dead men, and he himself is one as well. While that latter portion is something you will only see in the manga, it still remains that Ganta is simply a bad main character. And I do really mean that. He's your basic, generic, shonen protagonist from this era of anime. He is edgy Naruto Uzumaki. And this carries over to almost everyone in this anime. I found myself not liking most of this cast, especially Shiro, who I know I hate, but am left conflicted as she sorta has to be in this show. In many ways, Shiro is the character to lighten up the mood. Being the most innocent character, she brings a bit of light to this dark show, which this show very much has. She's a necessity, but by no means is she even really a great character in the anime. Oftentimes, I found her as annoying as Ganta, except I accept Shiro much more, because, like I said, she makes the show a lot more tolerable at some points. And all of the other dead men too. I just don't like these cast of characters. They're all so generic and basic that I found myself bored by the time episode 7 arrived, which once again, that's 6 episodes of goodness, so I'm not being super negative here. Most of the good guys in this anime had the same simple setup too. They were either framed, misunderstood, or you are simply misled to think they're terrible people. And surprise, it's revealed that they really don't do much wrong. Minatsuki, Yo, Todo, Naagi, I just found them all so painfully boring as characters, and they all felt edgy for the sake of edgy. Especially Minatsuki, who is basically a copy of Yunogasai, or one of those generic yanderes. But there is a light at the end of the tunnel. Once again, the first 6 episodes are good, but just roll with me here. I like 2 whole characters in this anime. Makina and Senji. Senji, in particular, was a really fun character, I thought. His backstory of being a comp in the extra OVA was really compelling and got me into his character. But more than that, he's just a really cool character that made sense and fit into this world without being some generic character. Same with Makina as well, who I enjoyed for having to deal with the most depraved inmates possible. I swear, she is harassed constantly by these inmates who say the worst stuff you could say to a woman, and she takes it all in stride and pretty much just cuts down people to size. Literally, she has a sword, and that way she's just awesome for being a no-nonsense character. And I mean, it really is a shame that I didn't like this series coming back to it. But this anime in particular, didn't give me much of a reason to say much of anything good about it. Take, for example, its ending, which may just be one of the worst endings I've seen in an anime, and likely why so many people want a season 2. After seeing something like that, I myself would be feeling duped and wanting to believe that there would be something of a season 2, some kind of closure. But alas, after 8 years, still, there isn't a season 2. And there likely never will be one, and I'm okay with that. The ending to this anime simply felt like a spit in the face because it just ends so awkwardly. After finally defeating the main bad guy and revenging the deaths of Ganta's friends, it ends with him going back. That's it, and I can understand why so many people don't like this anime because of this ending. But, being ever the curious, I decided to read the manga for this video to see how the story would have gone. And surprisingly, and this is the optimistic, fun part of the video, I was entertained thoroughly reading this manga. The main differences between the anime and the manga is that for one, it's complete, and the other, they remove some characters from the manga story. And really, the manga is a complete improvement over the anime adaptation. While it still isn't perfect, and I don't like a lot of the characters, the manga really makes up for this with the last 15 or so chapters of the story. By the end, it's revealed that Shiro was Redman all along, which to the reader was known definitively by chapter 14 or so. The reason she decided to kill all of Shiro's classmates is because she was jealous of Ganta for having friends and all the things that she didn't have. This is because Shiro was kept in a prison and experimented upon when she was just a baby. This also explains why she had all of these insane powers, because she became the wretched egg, which is able to give anyone a branch of sin, otherwise known as the power to control the user's own blood. So, she decided to kill all of Ganta's friends and force him to return to Deadman Wonderland with a branch of sin that she gave him to force Ganta to kill Shiro to end her own suffering. But in the end, Ganta decided not to kill Shiro and to forgive her for killing all of his friends and ruining his life. And they fall in love. I really love the story they told here in the end. It really made me like Shiro and Ganta's character much more than the anime ever did. Even though, initially, even in the manga, they didn't give me much reasons to like these characters. I feel like there could have been better, and when I mean better, I mean way better ways to reveal things like Ganta having his memory wiped, Shiro being the red man, the innocent persona she put on, and most things in the beginning and the middle portions of the story. But, oddly enough, as a whole, the manga is way better than the anime. The anime I felt was just kinda not good. If the anime is average to good, in the best of circumstances that is, the manga is good to great. While I still have a lot of qualms with Deadman Wonderland, ones that are issues that are a detriment to the enjoyment of the story itself, the last 15 to 20 chapters, you could even stretch that to 30 if you want, just really got me hooked and made a lot of bad stuff not as bad because it explains so much stuff that I didn't initially like in the anime. By the end, we got some amazing backstory on Ganta and Shiro and how that turned out. I loved how Ganta's mother originally had Ganta to be a guinea pig to become the wretched egg, but she got attached to Ganta, then named Murata, and took a random child to be experimented upon, saving Ganta in the process. This also explains Shiro's bitterness and why she was so jealous that she took it upon herself to frame Ganta. Not only was she madly in love with Ganta from their time as a child, she also had this hatred for how well off that he lived. While he had a family, warm food to eat, friends, school life, Shiro was confined to a concrete prison where she ate sweets all day with no one to talk to or connect with. This all festered and turned into jealousy for Shiro, and as well, her confined childhood explains why she's still so innocent-minded as she was babied by anyone that ever interacted with her. I think Deadman Wonderland is a story that is good in spite of its flaws. The anime just isn't a faithful representation of how better structured the manga really is. And the thing is, it's still flawed, but the anime felt more like an ad for the manga. Not a good one, and which that's kind of exactly what it was. So now we are left with the comments of the anime version needing a sequel, something that so many people have been wanting. I could not disagree more with this sentiment. While I understand why people still want this sequel, it just couldn't work for a multitude of reasons. For one, Manglobe hasn't produced an anime since 2015's Gangsta, and another thing is that the anime came out such a long time ago now. At this point, it's better to reboot the series, which I just don't think is worth it unless the husband-wife mangakas decide they want to be a part of it and redo some of the areas for anime viewers. Not only that, but the anime cuts out some stuff that, if they even did a season 2, would require a lot of extra explaining, which just wouldn't fly here. Also, as well, this probably wouldn't fly in 2019 anyways. The manga is so incredibly violent that I just don't think it would work in 2019, as a lot of how it comes off as is just edgy for the sake of being edgy. I think many people's tastes have changed at this point in time, and people aren't as tolerant of these kinds of edgy storylines, which is why I think the original creators would have to come back in to rewrite some things. This is a story that really is outdated to today's standards, which is sad, but I propose this. Read the manga. I get it. I think this story just works way better as a manga than the anime anyways. The art in the manga is great. You get the full story and it's paced better than the anime. Yeah, sure, you won't get the banger of an opening with the awesome visuals or the catchy ending song either, but you could always just listen to those on YouTube. And also, I realize it's frustrating to be told to read a manga, but much like Tokyo Ghoul and Berserk, honestly, it's the best way to read it. It's the best way to consume Deadman Wonderland. This isn't me saying that manga are superior. This is just me saying that this is one instance where the manga is the better version, and if you don't read manga a lot, this is one that, if you're interested in seeing the ending to Deadman Wonderland, yeah, check it out. Deadman Wonderland is a product of its time, but it's a good series by the end of its run. I recommend this manga to everyone watching this video right now. The anime, not so much. So with that being said, thank you everyone for watching this video. Make sure to leave a like, comment down below, what are your thoughts on Deadman Wonderland? Does it need a sequel or a reboot? I'm going with a reboot. And know that on my Patreon page, you can support me on the $1 tier and above and get access to literally everything. I'll see you guys later. Bye-bye.